how do you go about creating an appealing profile? Now, earlier I said trust your eye, and that's fine. But you don't have to just come up with things in your brain. There's a world full of beautiful, attractive moldings out there. So look for inspiration all around you. What kind of places? Well, other cabinetry. We're building cabinetry. Look at other cabinets you like. If you're in someone's home, or you're in a museum, or you see something in a magazine, and you see a molding you like, make a note of it. And we'll talk about some strategies you can use for that. Buildings, especially the neoclassical buildings, those built in the late 19th, early 20th century, have the big pediments and moldings on them, so look at those. Architectural moldings inside of houses. Again, going back to the late 19th century, early 20th century, moldings were a bigger part of how homes were put together, so you can look around a mantelpiece, over doors, cove moldings, picture rail moldings, all have intricate and different profiles. So look at those, kind of study them, see if there's something that, if it caught your eye the first time, there must be something there. So again, trust your eye on that kind of thing. Books, okay? And, oh yeah, the internet image search, cabinet moldings, architectural moldings, all these things. You'll come up with scads of inspiration. So you find a molding you like this profile. How do you go about making this intricate profile? It's a simple matter of breaking it down. So you take it and you break it down into elements that fit those that we saw earlier that you can make with your router table. Or maybe you're going to have to go out and buy a particular bit for something. So looking at this one from top to bottom. Up here at the top, what's that? That's an OG. Right in there, what do we got there? There's a small cove, and it's got a fillet on it. So there's a cove with a fillet. That one's pretty simple. There's just a flat area. Right below that, another flat area. This is pretty simple, isn't it? There's nothing really complicated about this particular design. But what you're picking up is how they were assembled. So these are all shapes you can make. You're just picking up how you're going to assemble them. Now down here on down here on the bottom we've got a cove, but notice where that line is, where I've kind of divided that. That's not really in the right place, because if I was making this molding and I routed this cove, I'd have this tiny little fragile edge, wouldn't I? That's not a good thing. So what I would do is I would put a fillet on it, kind of like this one up here, and then blend it so that fillet and that flat area there meet. So that's a bit of a practical consideration. You don't just want to cut a piece that has a fragile edge that is going to be prone to chip out or breaking when you go to assemble it. So here I would move that bottom line up 16th, 18th, eighth of an inch, whatever, so I have a fillet there. So let's look at some other moldings and kind of break them down. Now, this is the cove molding we saw earlier when I started talking about table saw. So up at top, there's our cove molding. We'll just kind of work our way down here. We got a shadow here, and what I've got there, it looks like a kind of an asymmetrical bead. I'm going to guess if this was 3/4 inches thick. We've got a 1/2 inch round over on the bottom, and maybe a 1/4 inch round over on top. Possibly a 3/8, or it even could be that 1/2 inch bit again, just lowered in the router table, so it's cutting a partial profile. Below that, we've got another fillet that could be probably attached to this molding. If I'm making this at home, looks like I'm going to have a small bead there. Looks like a 1/4 inch piece with 1/8 inch round over on each edge. Same thing right below it, so I've got kind of a double bead. So I've made two 1/4 inch thick beads and stacked them up. Below that, there's a flat area. Then I got my double bead again. And you probably could go out and find a double bead profile bit to do this in one pass. Your choice if you want to spend that for a very specialty bit, how often you're going to use it. And then of course this is all set on top of the cabinet, and it stands proud to give us a nice shadow line. That's something to be aware of that you're trying to create. Shadows create interest, and they break up things. As your eye is traversing top to bottom or bottom to top, it's good to give your eye a little bit of a break. Sometimes you want just a continuous flow, like in an OG or just a cove, and other times you want to just have a little bit of a break there. I can't tell you when. Again, trust your eye to look at that. Here's another cabinet, and this one's a little bit fuzzy. I apologize for it, but I liked the look of it, and I think we can still break it down. So at the top, again, we've got a little, I'm going to guess that's one of those asymmetrical coves, kind of like we saw earlier. But this I like because it's not a cove, a traditional cove. It's simply a flat piece, either beveled or set at an angle. So it's either beveled on the edge so it tilts out, or it's beveled along the face so that it tilts out. So that doesn't necessarily have to be a curve that's doing that crown. Below that, another round over. Here we've got a cove with a shoulder, flat, and then we've got a cove here that's just a little smaller than that one. Then it rests on top of the cabinet. This one, that's perfectly acceptable. We talked a lot about curves and things. This one's rectilinear. This is just flat boards with rounded edges to kind of ease the appearance a little bit, make it look a little less harsh. And we've stacked up those flat boards on top of each other, staggering their offset and varying the thickness. That's where the interest comes from with this one. So we've got kind of the star of the show there in the middle with your thicker molding there, slightly thinner piece on top, and then a thin piece below, and then, of course, supported down below. Here's the architectural molding. You get inside some of these 19th century homes, you get these elaborate moldings. Here you've got two examples from which you could get inspiration. All kinds of things going on up here at the Cove. You know, we've talked about cabinetry so far, but you could certainly use this cove molding method to make a crown molding for your house. That was a little difficult to dissect from this angle, so let's just go down to what's above the door here. I think, gosh, you've got 2 cabinets worth of stuff here. You got your dental molding, you can see that, crown moldings. We got, it looks like a cove there, another cove making the transition there. But again, you can kind of see that angle. This one's a little bit more severe. It's a bigger cove molding like I referenced, so they can get away with a little bit steeper angle. And notice that this angle looks very, very close. I can't vouch for it being the same, but it looks very, very close to this. If you're going to stack moldings, I think that's something you'd try to do is keep them very similar. This is an image search from Google and just an old freeze from a building, but I like this because it gives you a cross section. Here's why, you know, an image search has done most of the work for me, hasn't it? It gives me the cross section of all these different molding profiles, and I can actually probably even measure the thickness of these pieces to help me come up with the balance that will match the image I found here. This one, I am just fascinated by this one. This is simply a Roman ogee routed on the edge of a piece, and then it's turned on edge, and the dental molding I cut earlier, that's what's happened here. Just that it's cut a little bit deeper. Cut just above, again, I'm pointing here, it's cut, so this is cut just a little bit above the shoulder of the ogee. When I first saw this, I just loved the shape of this. And again, going back to inspiration, this appeals to me. I went home and I said, how do they do that? How do they do that? I look at, well, it's like as simple as I just described. So I cut it, and just a piece of scrap sitting around the house, I go, I'm going to have to find a cabinet to put this on now. So now I've got a project where I'm going to have to design something that will be suitable for this particular piece of molding. Here's another image search that brought up that cross section, and like I mentioned earlier, this drawing does the bulk of the work for me. I can find all these little profiles in my router bit set or make these on the table saw, and it also gives me an idea how to stack them up. So I can stack up 3 flat pieces and then kind of cap each one with its own profile. Here's an example of a building. This one I think is a Virginia government building, if I remember the search right. But again, there may be a couple cabinets worth of molding here. I don't think I'd go as far as the balustrade with the turned spindles and things up top. Maybe you would. I wouldn't. Maybe you would. But and the lion's heads, I'm not going to carve those things. But there's a nice cove molding that the lion's heads are rested in. We've got dental molding down here. So, you know, it's kind of closer to that 2-to-1 ratio we talked about. And you got a nice flat here. This is really kind of, I mean, if you ignore the lion's heads on up, this is really kind of subdued. There's not much interest to it. The dental kind of is where your eye goes on that. Again, if you're ruling out that railing at the top. And this one, you really have to look through all that carving to find the profiles. But again, here's just a slanted piece, flat. Looks like you got a small cove in there. This is just one of those stretched out ogees, those bits I've talked about where the arc is a little more elongated. It's not perfectly circular. Another ogee there, dental molding, and on down we go. So even looking at something like that, your first initial impression might be, oh, that's way too ornate. But you start stripping things down, looking at what's really there, you might find something that inspires you. So this has all been great theory, right, so far? Well, at least I think it has been. Let's talk about a real-world example. Finding inspiration and then doing something with it. This is an entryway door to my house. I was building a bookcase. I had a plan that I was working from. That it was kind of a tall bookcase. It's as tall as a door, 74 inches. And then there was a pediment on top of that, a little too ornate for my tastes and for our home, so I wanted to do something different on it. I wasn't quite sure what it was I wanted to do. So I'm scratching my head, and like I said, I'm not a designer, but I'm trying to sketch things on paper and, not getting anything that really appeals to me. During one of my breaks in my head scratching sessions, I just happened to glance above the entry door that was over my shoulder, and I saw the moldings up there. I thought, huh. And that was the moment I thought, I think I could probably do something similar to that. And I do two things. Number one, I've got an okay inspiration here. I hope I improved on it. But number two, it'll actually help tie my piece into my house. So let's dissect what we've got here. Got a flat piece here with a small cove. Then we've got kind of OG molding here. This is store-bought stuff, came from Menards. Then there's a dental below that. Got another OG, flat, and going. And here's something that this is one of the reasons this triggered my inspiration. This flat and this piece here and the fluted columns look a lot like my bookcase. So this is the actual molding I came up with. So you can see there's the fluted column. You can see a little bit of similarity there, but you can see why I think my subconscious said, oh, there's part of your bookcase already in the house. Why don't you adapt that? So what I did was I didn't really like, on the existing stuff, I didn't like how far this projected. This looked like they just missed it. They just went too far. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that. But I do like the cove. I like the dental. And I like the little bit of cove below that to kind of transition into the top of the cabinet. Cove, making that small cove on the bottom, that was no big deal. That's a router bit. Making the dental molding, as we've seen, that's easy to do. So the real question mark was, what was this cove going to look like? So I went through the process that we saw in that video. I just had short segments of scrap stock, really, and working with 2x6s, and I just set up different approaches on the table saw, different angles, tried some asymmetrical, like we described there, tried some wider, tried some narrower, and after about a half dozen times, I either got tired or I found one. I can't just remember which it was. But I found enough. So I had just, again, a small section of the cove, small section of the dental, and then as I would make these experimental pieces of cove, I'd miter the section, hot glue it to the top of this, and since my cabinet was in progress, I could take it and set it right on top of the cabinet and look at it from two sides. And I could step back and do the same thing. Most importantly, I could call my wife out. What do you think, honey? Okay, so that one's out. And then go back to the table saw and try something else. So I eventually found this one. I decided instead of that flat piece on the top, I would just incorporate that flat right into the cove, and that way it didn't have that extension out there. And as I cut this to size, it just seemed like a boring flat piece up there, so I just routed a shallow groove in there. Again, a bit of a shadow line, kind of breaks up that flat, adds a little bit of visual interest, at least in my book. Yeah, question?
Silly question. I've never used cove molding before. Is that a compound angle?
It is a compound angle, and we'll touch on that here in a bit too. Yeah. So, like I said, I was making various types of cove molding. So as I was working, I was also making notes on it. So you can see this one was 15-degree tilt on my table saw, so it's an asymmetrical cove. I noted that this is just a V groove bit. I'm not sure I had to do that. But then I also made notes that I beveled this bottom at 17 degrees to get that lean that I wanted. Again, it didn't have to be the 45 we saw in the video. I started it was flat first, and I didn't like the way it stood up, so I just started chopping away a little bit until I found an angle that I liked. And then the top is also mitered at 17 degrees so that it just kind of continues on up and out. So here's the bookcase, and let's put the two side by side. You can kind of see inspiration and my interpretation of that. Yeah, Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Doesn't that look great on my screen? That looks a lot better once that goes away. So again, inspiration and my interpretation of it. And most importantly, the wife is pleased.